The weather affects our daily lives, doesn't it? Forecasts can help you decide something as simple as whether you need to take a coat with you, to much bigger decisions like travel plans. Forecasting the weather, even for a few days ahead, can sometimes be tricky, but trying to work out what it's going to be like a few decades from now is really challenging. And with the climate changing, the actions people will need to take in the future could be much more far-reaching. In the UK, it's thought we'll get extreme weather more frequently, particularly flooding. We've already seen the turmoil that causes here in Yorkshire. In other parts of the world, the weather can be so extreme, the results can completely devastate communities. So it's really important for us to understand why these changes are occurring, how people's lives will be affected, and what measures we will need to take to adapt. That's why we need the help of climate scientists. And at the Priestley International Centre for Climate at the University of Leeds, we've got some of the world's best. I'd like to introduce you to some of them today, talking about what they do, why they care about climate change, and what we can all do to make the outlook for the future a positive one.
The people in the world who are most affected by the impacts of climate change are not the people who've contributed to the problem in the first place. And I think we have a real responsibility to understand exactly what everything that we do to the planet, what the impacts of those activities are.
For a long time, it was off in the future. It was 2 generations away. But now, people are still talking about, I can remember when the weather was like this. So it's not generations away. We're now talking about it, changing within people's lifetimes.
Our changing climates really affect everyone. And teasing out those effects, sometimes it's easy because it's a really obvious impact. Sometimes it's not so easy. But it's something that affects us and obviously affects future generations.
As a scientific challenge, it's the biggest scientific challenge that we have at the moment.
The reason I care about climate change is because I know it's going to have an influence on my child. And I want to say, well, I really tried. I really was part of trying. I really was part of trying to open the idea space, to give people a better reason, more compelling ways of getting to grips with this problem and to seeing a way into a future that was really okay. That was a future that people could want to go towards.
I think there are a lot of opportunities that are presented by the idea of tackling climate change. So air quality is a good example, where actually cleaning up emissions from vehicles and from factories and industry is one way of tackling climate change, but also has kind of co-benefits in terms of improving air quality.
It is possible to reduce the amount of physical resources that we as societies and people use and still live well.
There are simple things like meat consumption, where if we reduce meat consumption, then that can have a very positive impact. That's us individually reducing our impact on the environment and on climate change.
In the country, we have a lot of renewable energy. We have closed down our coal-fired power stations almost completely. But we still have a lot to do as a society to decarbonise.
It's going to be a big change, and it needs to be managed well so that people don't get left by the wayside.
I do feel optimistic because I think right now we've got the information we need to be able to make positive changes and tackle climate change. Sometimes I feel pessimistic when I think about all of the things that could prevent us from actually making those changes. But I think we have to remain optimistic and at least try.
So I feel optimistic because I look at what can be done, and it's about everyone doing their bit. I also see difficulties in where we're up to politically at the moment.
I do certainly think that climate change is manageable, but we have to be prepared and we have to take action.
I think it's important that people understand what's going on with the climate because we're asking people to make changes to the way that they live their lives.
The scale of the changes involved require us to work differently together, to live differently together, to change some aspects of our lifestyle for the better, some aspects possibly for the worse, but we have to negotiate and think about all of that together. And if we don't talk about it, we're never going to get to the point in the conversation where these changes are okay.
It's not down to just the scientists to work out how it works. Everybody's part of the solution. It's a global problem that we're facing.